Good evening, everybody. Let me turn this on, put my blue light glasses on. I'm not getting old, I promise you that. I want to give a few announcements before we get started. It's good to see Mike back there. Who knew such a small little thing could just take down Mike? So, I don't know. In these last couple of weeks, apparently some of you probably have heard that different people have had tick fever, and I didn't even realize that was a thing. Now I don't even want to go in the woods, and I love the woods, but glad you're back, Mike. Couple of things. Actually, behind Mike on that table are two sign-up sheets. Some of you have already signed up. We have two things for WFC. We are going to help with, mark your calendars for Saturday, August 16th, and then the following Monday, August 18th. So the Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon, is a move-in day for freshmen. Freshmen only are moving in. So if you can provide like a case of water, that would be great. We're going to take that out there and help. Quantel Williams is the student life or housing director and things like that. So he's asked if we could help and everything. I need to sign up on that submission form, and I'll do that.
That's the 16th?
Saturday, August 16th, 8 a.m. to noon.
Men's breakfast typically. I don't know if y'all want to have it out there.
That would be neat. We could make that happen probably. It'd probably be pretty convenient. So just right after breakfast, just kind of walk over there and help. And you probably don't. I don't know that you have to stay for the whole time, the whole 4 hours, but you can come out there and support and everything. And the whole point of that is really just to provide encouragement, support, friendly faces. We're not trying to convert anybody right here, right? So just being aware of that. The following Monday is Weevil Fest. That's Monday, August 18th. I was in Mary Whiting's office this morning, and we talked about, with other campus ministers too, talked about how the ideal time to be there, if you're going to be there, is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, we were told 10:30 to 1:30, probably for setup and tear down, but anyways.
Orientation at 10 a.m., 10:15, and they will immediately be released to come over that direction.
Okay, so around that time frame, I'm going to be out there too. And let's see, this year we are responsible for chips. It is. I heard about it last year. Y'all had some fiascos out there, but anyways. A lot easier this year, a lot simpler. So if you can sign up, I can bring some chips, or I can give me some chips, like the Lay's. The number 200 is being thrown around. Okay.
We have over 200 registered for orientation, but we're preparing for 400.
Okay. So this is Monday, August 18th. We'll say 10:30 to 1:30. So we need chips, but we also need friendly faces who are willing to come out and encourage, support. So on your lunch break, if you're in town, and on your lunch break, and could come by in the quad back there, Fran.
What size chips? We're wondering.
It's just those small little Lay's. Yes, it's as simple as you can be. We're not trying to get all the big Tostito bags. Just the little Lay's that mostly have air in them, but we'll leave it at that. I mean, that's okay. 5 ounces? 1.5. But a lot of carbs. I know a lot of carbs. Okay. I think those are the announcements for WFC. If you are willing to sign up and help, that's on the sign-up sheets behind Mike on the table. So as you're walking out on your left. Saturday, August 16th. Monday, August 18th. Okay. Tonight we're starting a new series on Wednesday night. Appreciate Brian filling in during the summer. And I figured I've wanted to go through Ecclesiastes for a little while now, and I had this kind of longing towards the end of last school year. And I was just wanting to see, personally I wanted to study it, I wanted to look at it. Ecclesiastes is such an interesting, fascinating book. I've already gotten word from a number of you that some of you actually are really fascinated by this book, and so you're excited to study this. Others have not really said anything, and that's okay. But we're going to look through it. I figure as we've shifted some things with WFC, it's kind of good. I think this can really appeal to a wide variety of ages and backgrounds. And Ecclesiastes specifically allows us and invites us to really wrestle with some of life's greatest questions. Now, that being said, Ecclesiastes doesn't necessarily give us all the answers to the hard questions of life, but it does invite us to the wrestling match, right? I mean, this is a spiritual WWE. Fake or real, I don't know, but we're going to wrestle, right? So this is the search for significance. That's kind of why we're doing it. But I figure as we probably have some young adults, college-age students coming in here, they would get something from it. But also, some of you, as you are nearing towards the last segment of your life, you could also put your faith and hope and trust in what's truly significant. And so we're going to look at that tonight and start this series. And hopefully this will carry us till the month of May. But anyways, so we're going to do an expository series through the book of Ecclesiastes. I want to start, before I move forward, I want to point out these ESV scripture journals. I normally teach and preach from the English Standard Version. If you don't read out of that, don't worry about it, but these are some things you can find on Amazon for less than $10. On one side is the text itself. On the other side is blank lines. So if you wanted to go online and order that, it's like $6.99 or something like that. I don't even know what that's the price on there, but you could scan that QR code, it'd take you to the Amazon link, and you could get that. And so as we go through this book together, you could actually take notes, and it doesn't mess up your Bible or anything. That's just a thing that you can have. I'm just offering that to you as an option, as an opportunity, simply for you to study that. And the journals are very, very thin. Pam? Oh, really? You have scripture journals? What? All right, no tax at the hospital, right? Yeah. Yeah, no tax.
Do you have this one?
You have Ecclesiastes?
We did, we may be out of that one, but we have 3 of them, but we have the New Testament, that one.
Interesting. Well,
Yes.
I didn't know they sell those at the hospital. Okay. But no tax on Wednesdays? Is that what it is? No tax on Wednesdays?
No tax anytime.
Oh, anytime. I must have misread your Facebook posts, but I did read them. So anyways, this is an option for you. I'll keep this up here every class in case you just get intrigued by it later on. Now, what do you know about Ecclesiastes? Vanity of vanity? Joe, you said something? Everything's vanity. Okay. I heard something over here.
He said everything's meaningless.
Everything's meaningless. Man, y'all are depressing.
I find it comforting.
You find it comforting? Okay. How so?
Just because it's real, it seems to be more real life, things that you practically, some, you know, if you're having a bad day or whatever, I've always been told, just turn to Ecclesiastes, find something in there that will impact, or, you know, start to make you think.
Yes.
Make you feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes you feel better? It kind of makes you feel like you have someone else there that's talking to you about your own struggles. Yes. Okay. So it's almost kind of like... Do what?
Like they understand.
Yes, like they understand. Yes. What else? What do you know? What is it? This is the whole duty of man, for God will bring every secret thing into judgment, whether good or evil. Absolutely. Fear God and keep His commandments. That's the last verse of the entire book. Okay. Do we not know anything else? Okay, time for everything. That's mentioned in chapter 3.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. That's perplexing to me, as many technological advances as we've had, but that there's something else to it. Nothing new under the sun. All is vanity. Meaningless, meaningless. We'll talk about that word specifically in a little bit.
Wisdom.
Wisdom, how so?
Well, it's part of the book says wisdom.
Okay.
Yet, in 1:18 it says, in much wisdom there is much grief. So, we got to figure that out.
Okay. So Ecclesiastes is considered a wisdom book, or it's kind of in there with Proverbs and Proverbs, as I've heard it described by others, Proverbs is almost like these are general principles that you can abide by most of the time, but Ecclesiastes comes along and says, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Right? We acknowledge this is generally true, but then there's almost a glitch in the system. And so how do you navigate vanity or the hevel or the vapor of life in this fallen world? It's so there is some wisdom to it, yes? What are you most, some of you really enjoy this book. I know Mike does and Angie does. What are you most fascinated with in Ecclesiastes?
I think what fascinates me about it is apparently the guy that wrote it, which I believe is probably Solomon. A lot of people say not so. He was rich, had all the earthly worldly possessions that you could possibly ask for. Everything that you think would make a man happy, and then he writes this book, it sounds like he just absolutely does it. And that's, I mean, it just sort of tells you that without God in your life, money's not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Anything else.
So someone who has great wealth and wisdom, we assume Solomon, son of David, as the description is in chapter 1. But yeah, what you're saying, Mike, is almost like this guy has climbed this ladder to the top and he's looked around at the brim of this thing and he started to climb back down the ladder and say, it's not worth it. It's vanity, right? We'll talk again about what vanity is, but
He just has a checklist there. He checks off money,
yeah,
wisdom, power, everything. He just checks them off the list. Don't let them work.
yeah.
And really gets to the one that Larry's talking about, the very last verse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like the positive aspect of it, is that God has given man a job to do, work.
Uh-huh.
He said, go ahead and enjoy it. Have fun. Drink and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Eat and enjoy your work because that's your job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives it, that's a positive deal.
Yes.
Very positive. He doesn't say it one time, he says it, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah.
Within our chapter.
Yes.
4 times. Yeah, I think it's 4 times. Enjoy your job. Things are better going in life.
It's almost as if, as depressing and unpredictable as life is, there are still things that you can choose to do. Enjoy the work. As Solomon would say, eat, drink, and be merry. Right? I mean, enjoy the toil and the gifts that God's given you in your few vain days of life, almost. So there are some bright spots, even in very depressing times. You can still find bright spots in Ecclesiastes, which is good. It's really good. Any other fascinations? What are you most confused with in Ecclesiastes? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I tried to read this through all in one, and it makes your head hurt because you're trying to contemplate and really dig into it. I mean, if you're really trying to understand what the author of Ecclesiastes is saying here, all in one sitting from chapter 1 to chapter 12, I mean, that's a lot. Makes your head hurt a little bit. You kind of have to take it in chunks. And that's why we're taking it section by section, is because that's enough to digest for us. But there are some confusing things in here. Is there anything in here you're confused by? Confused? One resource that I've been looking at said Ecclesiastes is one of those books that force us to wrestle with very difficult questions that are pursued relentlessly. In the process, it leads us back to the starting point of faith, but this time to know it more fully. Faith, we might remind ourselves, is a gift, but Ecclesiastes reminds us that it is not cheap. Just some interesting things to consider. Sounds like we need to go through Ecclesiastes so we can figure out what we are confused by. And that's okay. I just was curious if anyone had anything that was on the top of their head. I'm going to start off. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 1. Thus says the preacher, or the word Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, in Hebrew means one who gathers people. The author is said to be the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Now, I do want to acknowledge that if you do some scholarly research on Ecclesiastes itself, there are going to be people who say this. I don't know how to feel about it, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. Scholars suggest that there are two voices, and I understand what they're saying, that there is an original author. There's two voices here, an author and a teacher. The author is almost the one that kind of frames the opening part and introduces it so that the teacher can actually give the wisdom to you. And then at the very end, the author again closes it. It's almost like, I think of it like a window. Like you have the glass window, the main body of the window frame itself and the glass and everything. And on the sides, you have the shutters for decoration or for actually, closing it up like they used to. And so you have the author introducing it and concluding it, but then you have the main teacher. And so when you talk about authorship, and if Solomon was the author or if it was someone with a Solomonic persona, we're going to talk about that. It kind of throws you for a loop a little bit, but we'll get into that here in a minute. But that's how I picture it, as a window. So this is what scholars would say. There's an author that introduces it and concludes it, but there's a teacher teaching us through a series of tests. And so authorship, most traditionally, Solomon is ascribed authorship. However, there are other possibilities. Some people suggest there is a different descendant of David this could have been, or maybe a future Israelite teacher using a Solomonic persona. That's kind of how you'd say that. This could be one of two things when I say a Solomonic persona. It could be someone writing these things down from the viewpoint of Solomon himself later on after Solomon's life. But it also could be, do you ever know about famous people who, I'm not here to throw a wrinkle in this at all, but those famous people that tweet out a lot of things all the time. You're probably thinking of one specifically right now. I've seen videos of famous people telling someone else what to write down or type out to put on social media for them. So it's still coming from them, but someone else is transcribing it for them, right? And so you kind of have that idea. You can see this with politicians, presidents, busy figures, this, that, and the other. So these are some possibilities. If you're intrigued by this further, I encourage you to go simply look at other scholarly works. A lot of scholars will suggest that Solomon is not the author. However, I'm willing to just call it Solomon as the author, because who else fits this description? I mean, I surpassed all the wealth in here and all this kind of stuff. And so even if Solomon may not have penned the whole thing, I still think it comes from him, or at least depicts him. And so we can acknowledge that Solomon is ascribed the author. But I want to acknowledge, does it really matter who the author is?
As long as he's inspired by God.
Absolutely. It's similar to that. Mike said, as long as it's inspired by God. We believe it's inspired by God. That's what matters. Absolutely. It's almost like the discussion on who wrote Hebrews. Do we really know who wrote Hebrews? No, we don't. Joe's shaking his head no, really viciously back there. No, we don't. We don't know who wrote Hebrews. Traditionally, many people said Paul, and there's some reasons you could think that, but there's also a lot of other theories that point to other actually stronger possibilities. And so, again, you'd have to kind of dig into that and look into that for yourself. But as long as you believe it's inspired, I think we can all find common ground. Regardless of who you think the author is, we still believe it's inspired. But I'm going to personally say Solomon is the author, because I personally hope, for Solomon's sake, that he wrote this. Did you know at the end of Kings, or at the end of Solomon's life, in the description in the Kings and the Chronicles, Solomon is found in a state of apostasy? His heart has been turned away by all the women, those 700 wives and 300 concubines, or whichever one it was. His heart's been turned away from the Lord, and he was found at the end of his life in a state of apostasy. I hope that Ecclesiastes is him writing from a penitent heart, saying, I went through all of these things and it was all vanity. I hope that's what this is. And so personally, that's kind of where I put my chips in and say that, even though I know scholars say this. Now, to get a little bit background on this, turn to 1 Kings 2 with me. We're not going to read all of 1 Kings chapters 2, 3, and 4. We're going to read some snippets of it and just kind of look at how this kind of came to be and look at Solomon specifically. First Kings 2. So we remember the order of the kingship. It was Saul, and then God took that away from Saul and gave the throne to David, and then gave the throne now to Solomon, the heir of King David. Chapter 2, 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 1, when David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying, I'm about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. And David would continue to speak to Solomon in those words. But let's skip down with me to verse 10. Then David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? And the time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon began to sit on the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was firmly established. Now from 1 Kings 2, verse 13, all the way nearly to the last verse of chapter 2 is this long narrative of how Solomon's reign came to be, and there's this conflict and tension and just struggle for power. And we're not really going to get into all of that tonight, but just look at the last sentence of chapter 2, verse 46. So the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon, okay? That's your summary statement. The kingdom was established in Solomon's reign. Now, look in chapter 3, verse 1 with me. Solomon made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He's already going to other countries. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people were sacrificing at the high places, however, because no house had yet been built for the name of the Lord. The high places was not something that you really needed to be involved with or in everything. However, the writer of 1 Kings acknowledges that there's not a place elsewhere, so it's just kind of the situation. Look at verse 3. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. So it's like Solomon's a great ideal person and figure only for this, except for this like little asterisk over here. Interesting. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. 1,000. 1,000. 1,000 burnt offerings. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. Now, this is where Solomon gets his wisdom. God said, "Ask what I shall give you." Solomon said, "Lord, you've shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness and righteousness and uprightness of heart towards you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day, me. And now, O Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Although I am but a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. Because, in all honesty, for who is able to govern this, your great people?" Look at the Lord's response here. It pleased the Lord, verse 10, that Solomon had asked this. And God said to him, because you've asked this, and you've not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but you've asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right. Behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall rise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all of his servants. So that's where Solomon gets his wisdom. 1 Kings chapter 3. In a dream, and then you know the story of the two women that have their babies, and one baby got killed in the night or something, and now they're having a fight over which baby is which, and Solomon says, let's just split it in half and give it to one to you and one to you. And that's like his first test of wisdom. We're not going to focus on that so much, but you know that story, I'm sure. Skip to 1 Kings chapter 4. I believe in verse 20. Judah and Israel were as many as the sand by the sea. They ate and drank and were happy. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates to the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cores of fine flour and 60 cores of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. For he had dominion over all the region west of the Euphrates, from Tifsa to Gaza, over all the kings west of the Euphrates, and he had peace on all sides around him. Notice that, military safety and security. Judah and Israel lived in safety from Dan even to Beersheba, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, all the days of Solomon. Solomon also had 40,000 stalls of horses. 40,000!
That's his second mistake.
The military?
No, the horses.
Oh,
When God gave direction for kings in Deuteronomy, his first was married an Egyptian woman,
yeah.
queen, and this is his second. The second mistake as far as those directions that were given in Deuteronomy, not to have many horses and don't go to Egypt to get one.
Yeah.
Boom.
40,000. 12,000 horsemen. Think about all those jockeys.
The other thing interesting about this is David and his people rode mules.
Yeah.
Things have changed. So they've gone to horses. Interesting.
Yeah. And horses were costly, and they were considered very strong military forces. And so if you had horses, and that's why you have different, is it Psalms or is it different times where the prophets like Jeremiah and Ezekiel will say, not by military force, not by the don't trust in the horses, but trust in the name of the Lord, right? It's not your military power or strength or independence or back-to-back World War championship stuff. It's the Lord. So he has all of these things access to him. 40,000 stalls of horses, or whatever the number is, 12,000 little jockeys running around. I don't know if they were actually that short. I don't know if he had a secretariat or something. I don't know. And those officers supplied provisions for King Solomon and for all who came to King Solomon's table, each one in his month. They let nothing be lacking. Let's see. Verse 29, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure and breadth of mind like the sand on the seashore, so that Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all other men, wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his fame was in all the surrounding nations. He also spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He spoke also of beasts and birds, reptiles and fish. And people of all nations came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. Okay. A lot of different information. We skipped a lot though, just so we could get to that. I mean, you can see the description. You can see the description here of Solomon's estate, if you will. Lots of things. And his wisdom is growing and increasing, and people are coming to his table. They're wanting to see him. They're wanting to hear his advice. They want to be around King Solomon and come to the king's table. You can imagine that even though in this great wisdom, I wonder how big his head is getting. I wonder, right? But he's got all of these things. He's never lacking. And so a little bit of Solomon's reign starts in this time. If you want to study that further, I do wonder, I didn't look in great detail about all the specifics of the conversions and things. Solomon was the son of David and Bathsheba. That's an interesting point. Where is Bathsheba found? Come on, you know Bathsheba. What was she doing? Taking a bath on the roof, right? And David lusted after her. When all the kings were out at war, he was back at home, and he got on the roof and saw her on the roof, and then all of a sudden called her, and and then there's this affair, and then now you have a kid out of wedlock, and it's an affair as well. I mean, all this stuff. Has Uriah the Hittite killed? Solomon was the son of David and Bathsheba. Very fascinating. Very fascinating. Think about that. Solomon, it took me a long time. I didn't even realize that for a long time. Solomon was very wise. There's no one that is wiser on planet Earth than Solomon. You could argue Jesus, but beyond Jesus, there's no one else on planet Earth that had the wisdom that Solomon had. You think about this too. What does that say about God? If God can give him that wisdom, then that means God is wiser than Solomon. And so when James says in James 1 verse 5, if anyone asks God for wisdom, or if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God without doubting, right? Because if you doubt, James pictures you as a wave tossed to and fro, but that's just interesting. If Solomon was the wisest person to walk this earth outside of Jesus, and God gives him that wisdom, then God has this infinite value of wisdom that we can tap into and request as we need. And so he's trustworthy in that. Solomon constructed the first temple. Remember, God said, you've killed too many people. You have too much blood on your hands, so I'm going to let Solomon, your son, build the temple for me. Solomon's wealth and fame was very, very extraordinary. And it doesn't matter how hard you work in this life, you probably won't get to Solomon. You can try. Oh, I know you want to try. But just acknowledging, he's a gazillionaire. And we often, I've heard it articulated before, we find ourselves somewhere between Job and Solomon, and we're somewhere there in the middle. And I don't know, but that's just something to consider. 700 wives, 300 concubines. I don't understand that. Where'd they come from? I don't know.
Doesn't seem very wise, does it?
No. Wisest man on planet Earth. I know, and we're going to get to that at the very end, is that...
That's the third statue he broke.
Yeah.
That one right there, on the end.
Just because you're the wisest person on planet Earth, I'm going to conclude with this, just a little preview. It doesn't guarantee that you're faithful. More on that later. 700 wives, 300 concubines. I guess his head's getting pretty big here. Solomon's reign was a time of great peace for Israel. You'll notice that there was great military safety and security, and God blessed him, but at some point, something starts to unravel, and by the end of Solomon's life, God says, your son Jeroboam, or whichever one, there's going to be hostility and division in the nation of Israel because of you. So there is something there to that, just to acknowledge. Here's an overview and outline of Ecclesiastes. You have the opening section, the very beginning of chapter 1, and then from some part in chapter 1, there's a long series of tests and questions. What about pleasure? What about wealth? What about military strength? What about the vanity of life? What about life under the sun? All these questions and series and tests and explorations, and then you get to chapter 12, and there's this closing section. You know it pretty well. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, and then Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. I mean, that's where he kind of sums it up. But we're going to go on this journey with Solomon through all these tests and questions because it invites us to wrestle with it too. Now, there's a word that you need to know about in this book. It's the word in Hebrew, it's hevel. It actually, that V should be like a B, but I wanted you to be able to pronounce it the way it's pronounced. It's hevel. It's mentioned 38 times throughout the book. 38 times in 12 chapters. Something significant. This is the word for what, when you read in chapter 1, vanity of vanity, says the preacher, all is vanity. Well, it really can be, when you say it in Hebrew, it's hevel is hevel, right? That's the word that's being used. There's a lot of different meanings you can say. Different people suggest different things. It can mean temporary, it can mean fleeting or fleeing, it can mean enigma, paradox, beauty and goodness, but yet it's like beautiful and good but seems to blow away. And here's what I'm going to go with. Here's how we're going to interpret it a little bit. We're going to go with vapor or smoke. You ever look at, you think about a vapor, kind of arises up. You're ever on let me just ask you, what are your experiences with vapor or smoke? What do you think of?
On the river, is that what you were going to say? Like
Yeah.
when we go trout fishing in the mornings, the water's cold, and on a summer or spring day, you're going to have that vapor all through the valley.
Yes.
Cold water.
If you ever go fishing, maybe on the White River or something early in the morning, that water, you said the water's cold? Because the air's hot. So you have that mist and that vapor that's kind of hovering over, and you could motor up the White River and go right through it. You can see this vapor around you, but it just kind of just passes past you, right? Because it's there, but it's fleeting. It's vapor. It's right. What else?
Brothers go to a lot of the rubber, paper mills, places like that put it out. Portions of the mill there is steaming and curing and all lumber and so forth, but there's a lot of vapor pipes you see coming out of buildings and all, and so it's usually a white vapor that just comes out for a period of time and then just vanishes. That's where I've had
Yeah.
biggest
Okay.
experience with vapor.
Sometimes you go by the sawmills where they're dry killing lumber, and when they open those doors, it's a white vapor comes out.
Yeah.
And it just dissipates almost immediately.
Yeah, so if you go past paper mills or sawmills, I think of Riceland and Stuttgart too. I mean, you just have all this white smoke vapor coming out of those pipes, and so it just kind of disappears into the sky. You see it come out, but then at some point it fades away. How about around a campfire? Does smoke follow beauty? Larry, does smoke follow beauty?
Yes.
Okay. You think about morning mist over a river. If you've ever had a coolant leak, you may have had smoke coming out from underneath your hood. Maybe if you've cooked sometimes before and you had steam from a cooking incident or something like that. I've had that before when I'm cooking bacon. Sometimes it gets a little too steamy and the smoke alarm goes off. You have campfire smoke, which, and I'm not bragging about this if smoke does follow beauty, but campfire smoke always just is attracted to me. I don't know what it is. But this is the picture, right? This is the picture. Life is hevel. You can reach out and touch it, like a campfire smoke, or you can blow it away or whatever. Or you can, as you're going up the river on a cool morning or a warm morning on cool water, it's passing through you. You're going past it. You can just kind of move through it. It's real. It's tangible. You can see it. You can reach out and touch it, but when you try to grab it and hold on to it, you can't take it with you somehow. That's what hevel is. It's real. You can't take it with you. And so Solomon uses this word 38 times throughout 12 chapters. Vapor, mist, or smoke, you can visibly see it, reach out and touch it, but you can't take it with you. And so the whole point of this, the author's goals, ultimately you can see, is to allow the teacher, according to scholars, allow the teacher to deconstruct all the ways we find meaning apart from our God, Yahweh. That's the name used in the Old Testament for God, if you didn't know that, Yahweh. So we're going to deconstruct all the things where we try to find significance or worth and value and all those things outside from God himself. The writer of Ecclesiastes, again, allows us to wrestle with the significance when we try to find value and significance in things that are vapor, or as your Bible may say, vanity. We're going to wrestle with, why do we find significance in these things, and how do we really find significance truly in what we could see now from this side of the cross, that this points actually to Jesus. So where do we truly need to find our significance too? Well, we're wrestling with those questions. And here's some questions that the book of Ecclesiastes actually poses here. How do we live life in the midst of hevel? I mean, really, how do we do this? If life is a vapor or like smoke, then how do you choose to live your daily life? If it really is all meaningless or vanity or vapor, how do you choose to live your life? What are your attitudes when things go well? What are your attitudes when things go terribly? How are you going to view yourself? If life is a vapor and vain and hevel, how do you view yourself? And how do you determine what's most important in this life if everything around you amounts to a vapor? I mean, really, like at your funeral, you're not going to take anything with you in a U-Haul. You're going to go ride in a hearse into your casket. And you enter into this life, I've heard someone say this too, you enter into this life with nothing, and you spend your entire life chasing after this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and then you end up you have to leave it behind. How do you live life amidst hevel? Another question is, what's our daily posture towards God going to be? If life is vanity and vapor and hevel, what's your daily posture towards God, the creator of this world? Are we going to trust and fear the Lord? Or are we just going to do what we can for as long as we can? Another thing, too, is, are we going to grow apathetic? Where we're just kind of indifferent? We pray to God, but then we go do whatever we want. And then another thing, what expectations of life are getting in your way? Something I've learned, I've learned this over the last couple of years in counseling, is that unrealistic expectations in your life will weigh you down quicker than a bear on a sapling. You can think about Yogi Bear climbing a little sapling to get a picnic basket. It'll weigh you down. If you have these unrealistic expectations going on all the time, sometimes we put expectations on people and ourselves that are unrealistic, and that affects how you see things. And, we do acknowledge that in this life there is a cause and there is an effect aspect to life, but there's also time and chance. And so it's all kind of jumbled there together. There's cause and effect, but in the midst of cause and effect, there's also time and chance. And it's this unpredictable life, this reality. It's almost kind of like a pinball machine. You can play pinball and the ball goes up and everything, but at some point it falls down into some slot and time and chance still happens. And so if things always have to be exactly this way or exactly that way, then we're going to be disappointed and depressed in the midst of a hevel life. But if we can acknowledge that life has this unpredictable factor to it, and we stop forcing everything to be our way all the time, then I think that we can start growing towards a healthy approach to life, how we can actually live life amidst the unpredictability, the vapor, the smokiness of this life. So I want to give you some key overview principles of this book, and we will pretty much be done. There you go, all the way through. Majority of life's out of your control. We hate to hear this, but majority of us are control freaks. Let me give you an example. From a very young age, I knew how to work the Dish Network remote. And you better believe I started recording all of my little cartoons that I wanted to watch. Some of you may not have even heard of them, but anyways, I knew how to work the TV remote when I was little. I recorded my own cartoons, even when I would skip the commercials and I had to skip back because I went too far into the show and I wanted to, it recorded everything. Ecclesiastes reminds us that in a real way, we are not the ones with the remote anymore. We don't have the TV remote. We love to make sure we have our nice couches and recliners, and we almost fight over the TV remote because we want to control what's being shown and seen. But in reality, Ecclesiastes reminds us, you and I don't have a remote anymore, especially if we've surrendered our life to King Jesus. We don't exactly have the TV remote anymore. We've surrendered our right to that. Majority of life's out of our control. So even if you run a business or a parent, you're very aware you can't control everything. This is also partially why I do not say that God is in control. Partially because control, number one, has a negative aspect to it. If you go back and listen to any lesson I've given, I've always tried to say that God's not in. I'm not saying that God's not in control, but I'm saying He's in charge. Also, if God's in control, as we take it at face value, then He's technically responsible for sin. We know that's not true. And I think about if God's our parent figure. Parents, I know I've just observed things. Think about my own parents as well. There's a lot of times that you're in charge of your kids, you're responsible for your kids, but there are things that they do that are against your will, right? You cannot control them one bit. And if you try to control them, you're going to become a helicopter parent, and it's only going to push them away further. I mean, you know that, right? And so God, in this fallen world, it's almost like He's like, I'm not here to control. I'm not here to pull strings and be the puppet master. That's not what He's doing. He's not in control so much as He is in charge. Now, you may disagree with me theologically. Fine, okay, but that's where I'm standing on it. God's not necessarily in control, but He's in charge. He's responsible. He intervenes in this world as He sees fit because He is sovereign. And we love to put it on Facebook. Oh, God's in control. God's in control. Well, Satan's on a leash, that's for sure. We know that. But we can't charge God with being in charge of sin. So anyways, it's kind of a wonky thing. And this too. If God's in control, I just find it funny that He would simply step down and offer Himself in this hevel life and offer us redemption and forgiveness through His own suffering, so that whosoever will may come and drink from the fountain of life. Anyways, we can have discussions about that after. Fearing the Lord, another thing we need to be aware of. Fearing the Lord has real advantages and hiccups. For years, I would argue that we have taken a very black and white approach to real life issues and questions. Or you could say it this way. We have given one-dimensional answers to three-dimensional problems. And Ecclesiastes has a way of simply shattering our black and white, one-dimensional statements. And in Ecclesiastes invites us to wrestle with real life in a fallen world. So we need to be a people who acknowledge that fearing the Lord does have real advantages to it. It does have real advantages to it. It's not just something I do because I want to avoid the fires of Gehenna. It's something that I actually find as a blessing in my life, and it's truly the place that I find significance in the midst of a hevel life. However, that doesn't mean that there are not potholes on this road of following Jesus. It doesn't mean that it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's truly the greatest blessing of life. We need to be a people who acknowledge that and say it's the best way of life because it's the way our God called us to, the creator of life. At the same time, fearing the Lord may have a hiccup here and there, and you might end up in a pothole at some point on this path. There's sometimes perceivable setbacks in fearing the Lord because time and chance happen to them all. And we have an adversary that prowls around like a roaring lion. You think about that too. All these things are kind of over and all that. So there's cause and effect, but there's also time and chance. It's not always smooth, butterflies or rainbows. This is something that Kelly brought up earlier. Enjoy the simple gifts God provides. When was the last time you thanked God for a meal after you ate it? You ever have a good meal and you just savor that flavor? Oh, that juicy steak or whatever it is. Oh, we'll stop everything to pray before, but will we say thank you as we're eating it or say thank you after? Something to consider. When was the last time you thanked God for cool weather, especially in this last cool spurt? Did we thank God for the weather? When was the last time we thanked God for our job? Even amidst the stress and the responsibility that's been added to our plate, did we thank Him for the job that He equipped us for? When was the last time you thanked God for the friendships that brought you joy, or the last time you thanked God for the simple air that you're breathing? Maybe if we take a step back and really look at what God's given us and the simple gifts that He provides, no matter what happens, you can find satisfaction there. And then this is the last point. Wisdom doesn't guarantee faithfulness. This is demonstrated very well in Solomon's life. He starts out very wise, loving the Lord. 1 Kings attests to this. We read this earlier, but by the end of his description in Scripture, his heart had turned away from the Lord towards all kinds of things and people. And just because you're the wisest person on planet Earth, that does not mean that you'll be faithful to God. This is why I hope Ecclesiastes is a repentant Solomon writing and saying, I tried it all. I tried it all, and I climbed to the top of every single category, and I found that it was vanity. I found that it was vapor. I found that it's not worth it, so stop chasing it. I hope that's Solomon's heart at the end of his life. That's why I hope he's the author. But wisdom doesn't guarantee your faithfulness to God. You can have all these wisecracks, you can have all these statements, you can have all this wisdom and experience and all that, but at the end of the day, wisdom does not guarantee that you're faithful to God. Pray for wisdom and discernment. Ask God for wisdom and discernment. But don't let that be sufficient enough for you to acknowledge, just without saying, I got to be faithful. So my plea and my encouragement for all of us, myself included, is to acknowledge this. Don't let wisdom deceive you into thinking that God does not care about you cutting corners. The wisest thing you can do is be faithful to God. Think about that. For some reason, Solomon didn't get that fully. I don't know why. The wisest thing you can do is be faithful to God, and the rest will take care of itself. That is the end of my time. We've got a number of sources there. This has been the Search for Significance introductory material. We're going to start hitting the ground running next week in chapter 1. All right. Vanity of vanity. Vapor. You're dismissed.